Hello everyone, my name is Jordan, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I'm not exactly going to be following it to the T though. I don't even have a list of questions, but I've watched plenty of videos, and like I said, I'm just going to sort of wing it and talk about the books that I want to talk about, basically. So yeah, let's waste no time and just get into the prompts, the questions, or whatever. So let's start. Let's start with the worst and work our way up, shall we? So I want to say my least favorite book that I read this year was We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This was a terrible book in my opinion. I hated it. Um, it just it was boring. People talk about how beautiful the writing is. I felt like it was just boring. I didn't care about anything that was happening, and the ending just made me mad. I've never been so mad at a book before. Like, I didn't even feel bad for the main character, and everyone else who's read this book were just like shocked and felt all the things, and I was just like, what did you expect to happen? I just could not believe it. So, least favorite book, I think I gave it 2 stars. And normally I very rarely give 2 stars, because if I'm disliking a book that much, I'll DNF it. Like, I just don't read books that I'm not enjoying. I think the only reason why I was able to finish it is because I wanted to know what was going to happen, because there was sort of like a mystery. Or main character loses her memory and something happened and no one will tell her what happened. Everyone's acting weird around her and she's trying to figure out what happened. And I wanted to know what happened, despite how much I disliked it. So, but anyways, least favorite book, let's stop talking about it. Then I want to talk about my most disappointing book, and that was The Serpent'S Curse by Lisa Maxwell. This is the third book in the Last Magician's trilogy. This is a YA historical fantasy series. This third book, there's one more book coming out later this year. I was really loving this series, and this book just, it felt really repetitive. I felt like we didn't get anything new. I felt like our characters were doing the same things they were doing in the last book, and this book is chunky, so it took me a long time to get through it. And then I found out somewhere, I read somewhere, that I think this series was only supposed to be like a duology, maybe only a trilogy, and now it's a 4 book series, so maybe that's why this book kind of sucks. I am having high hopes for the fourth book. I've talked about this series in a couple wrap-ups, so I will link down below more if you want to know more about this series. But yeah, I will. This was very, very disappointing sequel. Alright, next let's talk about a book that made me cry. There is one book in particular that I have never cried so hard during a book before. Like, I am a fairly easy crier, especially if there's like high emotions and other characters are like crying. Like, I'm the type of person who cries when someone else is crying, even in books. So, but this book, like, I felt hungover the next morning because of how hard I was crying. Like, I had a headache from the tears the night before. Like, this is one of those books. It's a Colleen Hoover book, okay? It's Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This book, my guys, it was terrible. It was awesome. It was a 5-star read. Colleen Hoover. I know I'm a secret Colleen Hoover fan, but this book is about a woman, a young girl. She's just gotten out of prison. She went to prison for like 5 years because she was driving a car with her boyfriend was in the passenger seat. They got in an accident and he died. I think there was some drunk driving involved as well. I think they had been drinking. Hey, no, scratching the chair. So he died in the accident. She went to prison, and while she was in prison, she found out that she was pregnant. Well, his parents gets custody of her kid, and so this takes place 5 years later after she gets out of prison. She goes back to the town where her daughter lives with her ex-boyfriend's parents, and she wants to try to get in contact with them. She wants, custody of her daughter. But kind of approaching that situation is a little iffy. How do you go about doing that? Like, hey, I'm the reason why your son is dead. I want to see my daughter. it's horrible. It's a tough situation. So she moves there, staying at like some crappy motel, is trying to find a job, trying to get everything in order. She ends up also meeting this guy, of course. It is a Colleen Hoover book after all. Um, and it just so happens that this is her ex-boyfriend's like best friend. She never ended up meeting him because I think he was like away for like a year or something doing something. I don't remember. So she never ended up meeting him. So when she first meets him now, they don't know who each other is or are. But they very quickly find out. And it's so emotional. It's just these situations. I found myself in like high anxiety reading this book because I just could not imagine being in that situation. How do you approach the parents of someone you caused, like it wasn't directly, I don't know. You gotta read it for yourselves. It had me bawling my eyes out for hours. It was so emotional. It was the book that made me cry the hardest in my entire life. So, there's that. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about some of my, well, it's a 5-star read, not necessarily my favorite book of the year, but this is going to fall under the category of a book that surprised me. And that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I got this from Book of the Month. This was a July pick. I just finished reading this not long ago, like literally a few days ago. This surprised me. Like, I went into it, like, I think I didn't know much about it. I knew our main characters. We follow two, for the most part, two-ish main characters. There's more than just them two, but they became friends as, like, young children, and then they kind of fell apart, and this book takes place, they're both in, like, college, and they run into each other, and that's kind of where this book really takes off. It's about two people, they have love for video games, and they decide to make a video game together. It ends up going crazy, viral, everyone loves it, making tons of money, and it's just their story of their friendship, the ups and downs, the just what they go through in the video game industry. And it just, when I first went into this, I was like, yeah, I could go for a romance, but this is so much more than a romance. It's a love of video games, but I also feel like you don't need to love video games to like this book. I've even read a few reviews from other people who say that they're not into video games, but they still love this book, so don't think video games and be like, that book's not for me, because it might be. It's more about their relationship, um, their friendship, what they go through, like I said, in the process of making games together, and it was so good. It was so good. I loved every second of it. It's a 5-star read for me. Alright, now let's talk about, I think this might just be my favorite book slash series of the year. It's definitely a new favorite for me in the all-time list that I have no idea what that even consists of, but this is there. And that is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. I think I don't know the author. Okay, I listened to the audiobook. I don't have a physical book. So I listened to the audiobook of The Bone Shard Daughter, and then I immediately bought the ebook of The Bone Shard Emperor, which is the sequel, because like, I want to own these books physically, but I could not wait for it to come in the mail before reading the second book, so I bought the ebook. I do plan. I will own these books physically one day. But, so The Bone Shard Daughter, this is an adult fantasy series. There's bone shard magic. Only the Emperor and his heir knows how to do bone shard magic. And bone shard magic is basically, you take bone and you, like, etch, kind of like code into it to make, and then you put it into like a body, or like a body that you made out of body parts, basically. It's kind of weird, but really cool at the same time. And they're called constructs, so they are basically pieces of other bodies. It can be animals, it can be humans, and assembled, and then they have these bone shards with these like codes, and they are kind of like robots in a sense. They do what their maker tells them to do. Like I said, only the Emperor knows how to do this, and his heir, and that is who our main character is. We follow Lin Su Kai. She is the Emperor's heir, the Emperor's daughter, hence the Bone Shard Daughter. And something happened. She lost her memory, and so she's trying to do everything she can to get her memories back, to get back into her like father's good graces, because he like won't teach her bone shard magic until she proves that like she remembers, or she's getting her memory back or something. I don't know. But the whole like reasoning behind bone shard magic is because of the Alanga, which is like this ancient race of people that are gone now, and they're supposed to be these people who had like really powerful like elemental magic, and they were causing destruction basically, so the emperor kind of stepped up and used bone shard magic to get rid of the Alanga. And so now there is this thing called the Tithing Festival, where every citizen of the realm at the age of like 6 or 8 is required to give a piece of their bone shard, or a shard of bone, to the empire. It's very painful. They literally like, it's like they take it from your skull of all places. I think like behind the ear or something, somewhere back there, I think. And it's painful. And if your bone shard is being used in a construct, you can feel it. It can make you feel kind of sick sometimes. Sometimes you might not always feel it or tell, but it also will like you won't live as long because of it. So a lot of people die young in this world, and it's just a fantastic series. It's so good. We do follow a few other characters other than just Lynn, but it is so good. It gets so dark at times too. I mean, they're literally stealing people's bones. But it's awesome. So good. Such a great series. Highly recommend it, and I cannot wait for the third book. It's not supposed to come out until like April of next year or something. I wish I had known that before I started this series. But anyways, that is like my new all-time favorite series. Cannot wait for the sequel. Okay, now that I've talked about some of the books that I've read, let's talk about some of the books I would like to read. Let's talk about new releases that are coming out before the end of the year. So, and there are like 3 that I really know of off the top of my head that I just know of, that I know that I want to buy when they come out. There's probably more. I haven't really been staying on top of like what's coming out. I have thought about getting like looking more into that, and maybe even making videos on books that are coming out, whether it's by the month or the season, I don't know yet. Um, but so anyways, let's just talk about them. So the first book I was just talking about, it's the sequel to The Serpent'S Curse, the book that I was really disappointed by. But the final book comes out, I don't even remember it, later this year. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's the final book in that series, and I really want to get to it, buy it, own it, and yeah, hopefully it's a lot better than the third book. And then the next book is Babel? It's by R.F. Kuang, the author of the Poppy War Trilogy, which is another series that I've been absolutely loving this year. I read the first 2 books this year, Poppy War and the Dragon Republic, and I want to get to the third book. But anyway, so this is her newest book. It's coming out, I have no idea, like next month, August. I want to say it's August, but I could be wrong. I don't even know what it's about. I just am loving the Poppy War, and I will, new auto buy author. So definitely want to pick that book up. And then the last book or anticipated release I want to talk about is The First Binding by R.R. Virdi. It's the first book in a new adult fantasy series. The series is called Tales of Tremaine, and this comes out August 16th. August, yes. August is going to be a good month. I know there's more books coming out in that month. So this is, like I said, the first in a new fantasy series. Okay, I'm going to just read you what it says, because it just sounds epic. It says, all legends are born of truths, and just as much lies. These are mine. Judge me for what you will, but you will hear my story first. I buried the village of Ampur under a mountain of ice and snow. Then I killed their god. I've stolen old magics and been cursed for it. I've started a war with those that walked before mankind and lost the princess I loved and wanted to save. I've called lightning and bound fire. I am legend. I am a monster. My name is Airy, and this is the story of how I let loose the first evil. That sounds fucking fantastic, and I cannot wait to read it. Like, yes, please! But I think that is it. Like I said, I kind of wung it. Did not follow the questions exactly. I think a lot of these were a part of it, in it, but yeah, let me know how your guys' reading is going so far this year. What was your favorite book? And what are you still, like, what do you want to read before the end of the year? My list is long. I think I'm going to do a whole video, actually, on books I want to read before the end of the year. It would be kind of like a end of the year TBR sort of thing. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.